Hi folks, my name is Aleali. I'm CEO and co-founder of Truvo Cyber. Last week we did a walkthrough of Drata looking at SOC 2 implementation. We saw how the automated evidence collection works and versus manual and how to do gap assessment. In this section, in this episode, what you want to do is to cover ISO 42001, specifically for organizations that already have SOC 2 program, or ISO 27001, and they're now looking to get their AI program certified for ISO 42001. With myself here, I have Ryan, who works for Drata and does this all day long, and is a great technical resource that's available to let us do a demo of the platform, do a deep dive. And I hand it over to you, Ryan, for a brief intro.
Yeah, hey everyone. So my name is Ryan Pedersen. I'm on the solution engineering team at Drata. So I run implementations, expansions, just like best practices for how to go from start to finish in implementation of Drata. So looking forward to chatting today.
Okay, that's great. Thanks, Ryan. So let's start off with ISO 42001. Are you seeing a big jump in demand from prospect and customers when it comes to this framework? Have you seen a big difference between this year and last year? And if yes, why is that?
I'd say it's coming up pretty constantly. So anyone using AI, which is effectively anybody coming into the platform or evaluating Drata, is going to be at least thinking about this. I think what's interesting is that a lot of folks, they're doing this are really forward looking. So it's like you're saying, like we're going through, they come in, they need a framework like ISO 27001 or SOC 2 right now, but they know now that they have to be forward looking, that 42001 is going to be a fast follow there. They know AI isn't going to slow down, and they don't want to get left behind and not have this framework in place.
Just curious, in terms of what kind of customers are pursuing this framework, is it mainly the SaaS customers that are maybe implementing AI features and their customers asking that's why they're coming in, or what is it that you see?
Yeah, I think it's a little anecdotal, but obviously SaaS customers, most SaaS companies that come in are going to be implementing something around AI. But I think the reality is that everyone is using AI. So all these companies, even outside of SaaS, are using AI in some capacity, and they need to have these guardrails in place. So, legacy enterprise customers, they still are going to use AI internally, and they can have more stringent reviews conducted upon them. So they want to make sure they have these guardrails in place. So it really spans kind of across from SaaS to anything. I think it's more of just like an understood thing. People coming in are going to need to have this.
So if I understood correctly, so it's not just companies pursuing certificate because their customers are asking, but you're also seeing customers needing this because of their internal use of AI needs to be governed, and they want to make sure they're following best practices, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Right, makes sense. So with that out of the way, why don't we just jump right in? So let's say, I'm a SaaS company or other organization that already has a SOC 2 or ISO 27001, and they just signed up with Drata and they want to start implementing ISO 42001. Can you walk us through how the platform is set up and what are the first steps that someone needs to do?
Yeah. So once you have this activated in your tenant, it would flip on if you have multiple workspaces, you need to assign it to a workspace. So that'd be over in settings, workspaces, and you can assign the framework here to make sure it's there. But once you're in and going, because you've done a lot of the work already, you'll start seeing a number of inputs being added in. So ultimately, some extra controls and policies are going to be flipped on. You've done a lot of the work already. If you have SOC 2 or ISO 27001 inside of Drata, and this carries over, a lot of the AI pieces are going to be policy driven. So you can see AI, like these are examples of ones that might pop in. So AI data management here, this would come in, and then you'll see you need to put some other pieces and get some evidence in place. And then you jump over to like policies itself, governance, you'll see some new AI policies that get put in place as well. So AI governance policy, for instance, here, AI risk management policy. So these will all be added in. So you'll see a few gaps from the new policies that we're adding in that you probably don't have in place. If you do have existing policies that maybe don't match that you're already doing ad hoc, we can also use AI to help match those with controls as well. So new controls, new policies, pretty straightforward.
Yeah, so I guess in most scenarios, someone would already be using Drata for a SOC 2, ISO 27001, and then they're adding 42000. So their platform would already be populated for most customers, correct? Makes sense. And then once you turn on the framework, then the platform automatically adds templated controls and frameworks. Is that correct?
Yep, exactly. So it'll flip on everything you need.
Okay. And then a lot of customers ask us, so I'm compliant, but with ISO or SOC 2, but how much overlap is there between that and 42001?
Yeah, so there'll be it depends on like the configuration of 27,001 or SOC 2. I think like the back of the envelope number would be, so if you can even see if you have a tenant over here, you can see some of the crossover as well. So I can see 27,001 over here, and you're 27% implemented. And then if I want to do 40,001, I think it's a little less than half of the controls for 40,001 are already in 27,001. And then a
Okay.
lot of the additional ones are going to be like policy-driven ones. So very straightforward, not going into and doing like tedious remediation.
Okay. So in this example, is this assumption that the customer for this demo environment is SOC 2 compliant 100%?
Yeah, and if you're going to be 100%, you'll definitely be a lot of the way through when you flip it on. At least like halfway, yeah. And like the ones that you need to fill in aren't going to be a lot less of a lift than something like remediating infrastructure pieces. A lot of policies you need to add.
Okay, understood. So this demo environment, it's not 100% SOC 2 yet.
Right. This is let's say in a state where I'm implemented, I'm starting to figure it out, maybe a month in.
Okay, sounds good. Yeah. So the actual overlap is actually more than what you're seeing on the screen, basically. Yeah, which makes sense because basically 42,001 uses, it's an AI management framework, but uses 27,001 controls as a baseline, right? And we just layer in. Okay, that's great. And we can see on the screen how easily Drata is making that mapping happen. So the controls that pop up when you turn on a new framework, is it easy to distinguish to see which are the ones that are like new versus existing?
Yeah, so you can over here on the frameworks tab, you can select which frameworks controls you want to show. So if you had several in here, or we have a lot here, I can select these are the ones that are going to be 27,001, 40,001. If I drop the 27,001, then these are just ones only for 40,001, and I can see which ones they do sync with. So a lot of these are very AI specific. Some of these are going to be for all of these. This one will be for 27,001 SOC 2.
Okay.
For these ones down here.
Pretty common. I see. So you can just filter out by the framework.
Yep.
Okay.
And then they'll all be not ready at that point because you're gonna have to take some action on them. Or some of them, the new ones would all be not ready because you have to add in new policies and whatnot. So reasonably, the ones that are ready will be the ones that are from the one you already have.
Yeah, makes sense. So you don't have to upload the new evidence or do any new integrations if it's already green. Get to reuse your work. When we are reviewing the policy stuff, you mentioned that there's now some AI capability built into the platform. Did they capture that correctly?
Yeah, absolutely. So if you have over on the policy space, so maybe you've been working on some AI governance policies, maybe it doesn't perfectly match what you want to do. So if I jump into like a policy here, we do have this, which will suggest controls that you can map the policies over. So it'll read through your policy and then auto suggest controls that they can map to once you've approved the draft. So you don't have to go and like manually map those things. If you've done work, you can bring that in. So fit wherever you are in this process. If you want to start fresh, great. If you want to bring in what you already have, perfect also.
Okay. And the policy statements themselves, so they come with as a template, but are there AI based recommendations that are provided for the actual policy statements?
Yeah, the recommendations are actually like a very drafted plug and play on this. If I jump over to the policy itself, I'm not even sure if I have recommendations on this one. Another one I might have recommendations. So a whole lot of them have little like things where like we would expect this and that. So this is the reason we do that instead of more AI on the policies itself is like our GRC team goes through this and like make sure we do these in a really consistent way.
Okay, I see. So you don't want the AI to mess up with the policy statements because those are vetted by real experts and high confidence in that. Okay, I see. But the controls are more. You can trust AI more with the with the controls, I guess. Okay, yeah. I think one of the challenges in client environment is that the policy language sometimes is too high level, and it has to be because it's trying to cover a lot of ground for the whole organization. But then sometimes it takes a bit of mental gymnastics to go from the policy statement to what we actually will be doing on day-to-day basis. And it seems like the AI based recommendation is there to help with that.
Yeah, and I think a lot of the controls might have multiple policies, right? Because you don't want it to be too high level, so they can all feed into a single control. Where it's like we have done this via these, 2, 3, 4 policies. So you can like kind of do like they can each do one thing.
Yeah, so essentially you could have one policy mapped to multiple controls, and then one control mapped to multiple policies.
Exactly.
just the way it makes sense. Okay. And then looking at, what controls, of course, the goal is always to automate as much as possible, right? Using something like Drata, I know it has a lot of good capabilities there. But in this demo environment, can you see what percentage of the controls are automatable in this scenario?
Yeah, so what you do here is you select the framework you want, pick monitoring. So that's 12 of the 56 ones are going to have some automation intact for it by default. So that's like the general like automation. Again, this is a policy driven one, really. Something interesting too is like we do have a test library. So if you wanted to like bring in more tests, for instance, for infrastructure that are related to the 42001, you can come in here, see which ones are essential. These are kind of AI generated policies that we work with auditors on. You can bring those in. So if you want to add more tests for using certain services, then we can bring those also in. So you can add in some more automation as well.
Yeah, okay, so there's over 1,200 test libraries ready to go. So if I find a test in the library that I generally like, but maybe I'm using a different parameter, maybe log collection, duration is different than what's in the policy. Is it easy to adjust that?
Yeah, and like so we do have, you can make adjustments. We also have custom tests. So if you want to bring that over, you can customize any of the tests that you have. So that's actually another really cool one, I think, is another really good use case for testing, is to create your own test, pick out the provider that you want. So AWS example, and then you can create your own like parameters as well. So infrastructure, AWS, condition group. So take all the things that you would get and then make your own custom test. So a really good way to also go ahead and customize.
Okay, perfect. Yeah, so it gives you that full control. Okay, and then the other question I had is, what does it take to run all of these frameworks simultaneously? From a practitioner point of view, let's say you're a GRC analyst, with somebody else working with GRC, you're responsible to make sure that you remain compliant for it. Now you have 3 frameworks. Maybe there's a 4th one, GDPR or something. What does that workflow look like from day-to-day perspective?
Yeah, it's really straightforward, honestly, to run these pieces. A lot of this, and I can even share how, I see a lot of folks. I work with a lot of practitioners and what they do. When you come on to Drata, you're going to be assigning the work as their control ownership. So if I'm a control owner here, if any of the policies or tests that I'm responsible through this control need some action. So maybe it's a test is failing. I need to go fix this. A policy, there's evidence that I'm attaching that has a due date coming up. If something falls out of compliance and my control itself goes to red, I will be notified. So you can put in your workflow. So Slack, Teams, email, task, whatever you want to do, create a custom workflow. I am able to come in and remediate those. So it's more probably working where I am. I know a lot of folks will send like a daily digest out to Slack of things I need to do that day. So a lot of folks will do something like that. If I have something coming up next month, I have to do, I'll get something sent to me the month before, like, hey, this needs to be renewed. You need to go review this. So there's a lot of like things that come to you. So you have to necessarily log into Drata every day. Really, the workflows, once you build them out, are going to start working for you in terms of like tasks and notifications. So it's bringing on a few extra controls for 42001. Most of those are, again, policy related, and then waiting till the next notification. And then, hopefully things are all good and you're not going to have to really log into Drata very much.
No, that's you brought a good point. So I think most folks may think that the workflow would be like this. So they buy Drata, they set up the policies, they set up the controls and the populated evidence. Maybe they go through the first audit and then they're basically done. And then they have to just check the dashboard once in a while. But what you're suggesting instead is to set up a workflow to get the Slack message or Jira ticket. I assume you can do that, or email, so that the work debrief just shows up on weekly or daily basis.
Exactly.
Okay.
Like to think of continuous compliance instead of just doing it. It's not an annual activity. It's a lot easier if you're just getting notified you have action every day and don't have to scramble at all.
Makes sense. So we covered quite a bit. You touched on evidence refresh cycle. So for the stuff that's automated, that's clear. Like, if you're pulling, let's say MFA setting from AWS, that's happening probably a daily basis. But then the evidence that's like manual, maybe board meetings to discuss AI risk, that kind of thing. That I guess that life cycle is so when you freshly upload the evidence, like how do we know when is the next time that this control is due?
Yeah, and there are a couple ways to go about something like that. So one, this will link over to the evidence library. So we have a full library here where you can create evidence and assign it to somebody, and then have a cadence that you have the next review date. So board AI discussion here. And then what you can do is point to I'm going to do no artifacts, so it'll fail. Give this to myself, so I'm in charge of this one. And then I can select, which control I want, and then I can have a renewal date here, and then finish. And then back on that, get this going. AI board. What did I just call that? Board AI discussion, because I don't actually have something in here. If I add the artifact, then I can just do a URL. I can select the creation date and then the renewal date at whatever cadence I want here. The other option is a recurring task associated with a control. So if I want to do something, if I know something needs to be done every quarter, I can do a recurring task, to repeat every 3 months, for instance.
Okay. Can you tie it back to the control easily?
Yep.
Or is it just the notes? Okay.
Exactly. Control or a wrist, you can tie it to.
Okay. That sounds good. And then I think the last question we have here is practitioner advice for someone studying today. Again, going back to our scenario, many organizations, especially if you're US based, you typically, by the time you start to think about 42001, you have your SOC 2, right? I haven't actually come across any org that's jumping right away to 42000. You usually have your SOC 2 squared away, because that opens up revenue opportunities for companies. And so let's say you're in that situation, you have your SOC 2 squared away, but then for your second framework, you're thinking between 27,000 and 42,000. How should people think through that, which one to pursue first, or maybe should they go in parallel, or what? Do you have any recommendation based on that?
Yeah, so it's going to, I guess, vary a little bit between like type of customer, right? So if you're going to be just US based, which probably not, it's a good question. Do I need to have ISO 27001? Do I need it for? That being said, ISO 27001 and SOC 2 have a huge amount of overlap. A lot of the controls are going to be the same, the mapping. So you're going to be able to go from SOC 2 to 27001 really easily, and it's very impactful, especially if you're looking to do something internationally. If you need something for some reason for international outside the US, hugely impactful. So that's typically the path that we see. For 2001, again, we talked about really good amount of overlap. There are going to be some extra policies. It's a lot lighter of a lift. That would be a really good fast follow after 27001. So SOC 2 starting in US, absolutely. 27001, huge amount of overlap. And then for 2001, once you've already implemented 27001, easy.
Yeah, I guess if you're just thinking SOC 2 and then ISO 42001, you might as well just do the middle one, because between 42000 and SOC 2, there's so much overlap. You might as well just do
exactly.
The and I bet auditors will also able to consider basically give you a deal on if you're pursuing both ISOs at the same time, because their work is also reduced, right? You're probably not going to pay double basically for the audit itself. Okay, great insights there. I think we covered most of the items we wanted to do. There's actually something here that's not on my list, but I think people would love to see, and that is a trust center. So you've done all this work, you see all these weekly notifications, you've done the audit, now you want to brag about it, right? You want to tell the world. Can you show us how Drata gives you that capability to show off your security credentials?
Yeah, absolutely. So there'll actually be a little link here. So even from Drata, you can create a trust center really simply.
Okay.
What I'm going to do is I'll show a couple off actually. I have a couple here to show off for in terms of like trust center. You've done all the work. You've created these policies. Like you can see here that Asana, what they do, they have so many customers and they're able to lead with this trust center. Like here's our status. Here are the pieces that we do have. Here are our documents. So we have this on AI, we might have more documents around policies around AI. So you can gate that via NDA workflow. So show off all the work that you're doing, all your sub-processors, all of your question answers that are going to help. So you can really throw in the updates here. Drata has one as well. So you can see here that we're doing 42001. So if someone wanted to get access to that, they can request access, kick off an NDA workflow, make sure their current customer NDA in place, whatnot, get them the right access to the right documents here. And you can see where you can have more documents and share whatever policies you want to share publicly or gated workflows. So really valuable, really easy to do. You already have these pieces inside of Drata. So now we're just like putting it external.
Yeah, exactly. What I find fascinating is some companies choosing to publish the policies, not necessarily publicly, but behind the gate. But they're happy to give their customers under NDA. This was something that was very unusual a few years ago, people would see their policies as like IP or the secret sauce or something. But I think attitudes are starting to change, and some I think Asana was showing that, you know, here are our policies, like if you want it, like sign an NDA. And it's I love it, like when companies do that, because transparency always helps with trust. But also I think from, you know, Asana's point of view, they're getting free consulting from their customers. That's how I see it, right? Because someone downloads your policy, they find an issue with it, they come back to you like, oh yeah, it might be a good point that, you know, consider for next year's revision. Now you have an easy way to do that if your company wants to pursue that path.
I think it's interesting because it's also this motion of like going from like sending questionnaires and QA things. So like I get all your policies, I can run an assessment with AI through some agent to like get to look through policies and like find the answers already relative to criteria instead of having to do question and answers. So it's saving everyone time.
Right. Yeah, that's actually another angle I hadn't considered. You're right. Like once you have the policies accessible, then there'll be less questions for you to answer from the customer. Right. Thanks, Ryan. I really enjoyed the conversation and the demo. Do you have any final parting thoughts for folks who will be watching this?
No, it's a really good time to be thinking about getting your AI guardrails in place. I always kind of say like that really the best time to start is earlier. It's like the farther you get in with like these entrenched things, like before you have all these guardrails and policies and so whatnot in place, the harder it is to change. So yeah, here for any questions. But yeah, thanks so much.
Yeah, no, thanks, Ryan, for the conversation, and we look forward to having you in the future. Cheers.
Thank you.